Hi, I got a fantastic build for you today that I know you're going to love. What we have here is an HP Z440 Workstation. It currently has an E5-1607 V3 CPU in it and 8 gigabytes of memory, and that's about it. There's no storage, anything else. It's a very solid base to work with, but the E5-1607 V3 CPU, that's a very low performance CPU. It only has 4 cores, 4 threads, so it's just not going to get it done. We're going to upgrade this substantially, and stick around. You'll see everything we do. First thing I want to show you is what we're going to do and explain how that's going to turn this HP Z440 into a really high performance machine capable of handling just about any office tasks, video, and also even some light gaming. So let's get started. So here's what we're going to be working with. First of all, the current system has a 525 watt power supply, and it doesn't have any 6-pin connectors. So we're going to swap that out for this, which has 2 6-pin connectors. And we're going to need one of them for the GPU. The GPU is going to be an Asus GTX 1060. I believe it's 3 gigabytes. So they do have 6 gigabyte variants, but the 3 gigabyte variant is what we're going to go with here. It's going to be good enough to handle just about anything you will want to do with this machine. And a nice performance upgrade compared to what it was. The other thing here, the current system only has 8 gigabytes of memory in one stick. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace that with 8 4 gigabyte sticks of memory. So currently with the one 8 gigabyte stick, all you get is single channel, and you're losing out on approximately 50% of your performance, especially in anything that is memory intensive, like video rendering, things like that. Anything uses a lot of memory, you're probably losing up to 50% of your performance. By using 8 modules and filling all 4 channels with 2 modules, you get 32 gigabytes total and quad channel maximum performance for this system. Next, we're going to swap out that 4 core, 4 thread Xeon E5-1607 V3 with E5-2697 V3. Now that's going to give you 14 cores and 28 threads and approximately a 3.5 times performance boost. So it benches on pass mark about 3.5 times higher. So the E5-1607 V3 benches at about high 4,000s. The 2697 V3 benches over 18,000. So you can see that's a huge performance jump. Next, we're going to need operating system. So we're going to go with Windows 10 Pro, and we're going to load it on a 256 gigabyte SSD. Now, one of the trays is missing, so we'll be using a tray that we recently purchased just for this purpose, and we're going to be mounting that SSD to the 3.5-inch tray with an adapter. So we're going to go through all that. Lastly, you need some storage. We're not going to put a huge storage drive, but we are going to put in a Western Digital 1 terabyte. So a Western Digital Blue 1 terabyte hard drive. That'll give you enough storage to get started. So in case I forget to mention it, this exact build is going to go on my website, and you can look in the description down below, and there'll be a link directly to this build. You can go buy it. So let's get started. I'm going to flip this case over, get this thing positioned, and then we'll get started on this build. Bear with me, I might be moving some of the cameras around. It's on a arm there, as you see here. So we may get it moved around a bit. Let's get this set up where you can see down in there. So it's got a latch here. You will notice there is a little scrape here, but this case, it has no dents or any damage, just a little chipping. Now we're looking down in here, and you're going to see it has the memory cooler. Now if you're looking at an HP Z440 and it doesn't have the memory cooler, you're going to be restricted to only 4 memory modules. You can still get quad channel with 4 by putting 1 in each channel, but you can't do more than that without having the cooler on it. So if you want to fill all the slots, get the cooler. So we're going to get this cooler out of here to get it out of the way, and then we're going to start by pulling out the existing power supply and unhooking all the power supply cables here, and let's just get started on that. So you got these little clips here, and here. You just pull those and we can pop that on out of there. Now it plugs down in there, as you can see here. It's got a 6-pin that plugs in over here. So when you're putting it back in, be careful. Make sure you're being gentle and you're lining it up right. So next, let's go ahead and pull this out of there. So we're going to need to unclip all of these. You want to push those down and gently pull them out. Got another one here. Let's gently pull that out. There's 2 of them. Now we have the cable here that runs to the hard drives. We're going to have to get that loose. Kind of wound in there. And it has pretty good cable management, so we're going to unclip that. So that we can pop it on out of there. Get that loose. And the last one goes right through here into the back of the slimline DVD. So kind of looks like a SATA, almost like a mini SATA, but it's a power supply. So there we go. We got those. Let's move some of this other stuff out of the way so we can get to the back over here. And I'll just tilt that up for you for a second so you can have a look. We're going to need to pull these out. So we're going to get these screws out of here. Slide it out. And get the new power supply in there. Pretty easy to change out a power supply, and unless you can get a really good deal like I got on this from a local e-waste, e-recycling company, I would definitely recommend that you make sure your Z440 has the 700 watt power supply with the 6 pins. Otherwise, you're going to be limited to whatever can be powered by the PCI slot. And that's not necessarily a horrible thing, but you won't be able to power like the GTX 1060 we're going to put in here, much less a more powerful card. Now, could you use one of these connections? Yes, you probably could, but is that the best way? It's not. So we don't recommend that. It's just not the best way. And this can always be repurposed. And you can see here, it's a 525 watt. So it's a very good power supply. It just doesn't have 6 pins. And instead of trying to, add a connector, we could. But like I said, it's not the best option. The best option is what we're doing. We're replacing it with this 700 watts. So as you can see here, 700 watts and 2 6 pins. And if you wanted to put something more powerful than the GTX 1060 in this, you could do that. These can be, you could easily convert one of these into an 8 pin and put, say, a GTX 1080 in there. No problem. It has plenty of power. And I actually even looked that up today because I was wondering. You could put a GTX 1080 Ti in here. No problem. That's about as powerful of a card that I would recommend normally. But if you want to do video, so you want to render video and such, I would say go ahead and get a RTX, like an RTX 1060 or RTX 2060. Now I know that's not like a super powerful card, right? But given the limitations of this particular system, it's powerful enough. Otherwise, your system is, or your GPU is going to be CPU bound, and you're not really going to see the benefits. So why buy a much more expensive card that just isn't going to give you the same benefits? Now I'm going to show you another benefit of this power supply compared to the other power supply. So this is the connection for the DVD in here. Now, in addition to this slimline DVD here, there are 1, 2, 5 1/4 inch bays. You can purchase adapters that allows you to put hard drives in these bays, and you already have the 2 power supplies here. So you will find the upgrade path very easy. You could, again, run adapters on the other one, but as I said, that's not the best course of action. The best course of action is what we've done here. We switch it to the proper power supply for what we want to do. The other one was a proper power supply for a lower end build, something that doesn't have the nicer graphics card, something that doesn't have more drives. They were just going to utilize these 2 drives like that. That's fine if that's what you're going for. Might save a couple bucks on purchasing the Z440 because it doesn't have the better power supply. So you can do that. But if you ever plan to upgrade, I do not recommend that, because then you're looking for a new power supply or trying to rig connections. I never recommend that. This system has the ability to last many years for you. I know it's a very old system already, so it seems like, oh wow, how's it going to last many years? It can. It can serve you well for at least a few years. So there we go. We got that in. We've got the back power supply on the board. Now we're going to plug in the front power supply on the motherboard. There we go. The last connection that we're going to make right now is the one we disconnected earlier from the hard drive, or from the DVD drive. It's kind of up in there, so we're going to have to, I had to look a little closer. Got it kind of tucked up in there. There we go. Now we want to tuck this up in there until the time when you, if you purchase this, use it. But yeah, just tuck it up in there out of the way so it's not flopping around or anything. Now we want to finish our management here. And one of the things I like to do when I'm doing that is just like this. We're going to tuck this up in this little clip here. And then we're going to tuck these two SATA cables back in there. And when we do that, we're going to tuck them under this here. That way everything's like in there nice and neat, and it's not just being obstructive in the case. Now these, what we're probably going to end up doing is bending that one back and putting a tie on it, and then we'll connect it to the GPU, which will go in this slot. But we're just going to leave these for now because we're not there yet. All right. So we got the power supply in, we got it tightened up, we connected the back and front connections to the motherboard, and we reconnected the slimline DVD. So making good progress. Next, we're going to pull out the CPU cooler, and we're going to unclip this first. So we want to unclip that power supply there. So just be gentle. Don't try to force anything when you're doing this kind of stuff. And we're going to make sure that we remember how this is lined up. And it's pretty easy because this isn't long enough if you flip it backwards, so you shouldn't have any problem. All right, we're going to pull these out. Now, sometimes when I do these builds, I don't replace the CPU. I've got some builds coming up that have E5-1650 V3. Now that doesn't have as many cores as the one we're putting in this system, but it does have a higher base clock. So in single core performance, it does a little bit better. But this one, even though single core performance isn't as high, it has many more cores. So overall, it just is a better CPU, especially if you ever plan to do anything like multitasking and anything that's CPU intensive, like video rendering and such. Yeah, the 14 cores and 28 threads is just going to be infinitely better. So anyway, what I was getting to there is, even when I'm not replacing the CPU, I still pull out this CPU cooler and the CPU, because what you're going to find is a lot of these old systems, that is so dry. It's super dry. So this system is probably thermal throttling because you don't have the same connection to the CPU as you had before. So whenever you get a system like this, I highly recommend that you carefully pull everything out, get the gunk off of there if you're going to be putting it back in. I'm just going to set it aside because we won't be putting it back in. But I will be cleaning this off very good. We're going to get all the extra off of that, get it cleaned up nicely for you. All right, so let's pop these little clips here. and one on this side. And we're going to carefully lift it up. Now, these things, you should be holding them. I don't know if you're older like me, then you remember what handling a DVD is like. And that's what you want to do here. You want to handle it by the sides. Never touch the contacts under it. The other thing is, you're going to notice right down here, if you could see that closely, that there's a little arrow on the top of the chip, and there's a little arrow right there. That's how you know you're putting it in right. So don't force it. Make sure you line it up and you get the arrows. Now, there are a lot of pins down in there, so we have to be super careful that we don't touch any of those pins, drop anything on it, anything like that, because that's going to be a nightmare. You bend one of those pins and the odds of fixing it, let's just say they're not good. I've seen people do it, but they're better than me. I had a system that had a bent pin one time, and I tried to fix it, and it just did not work. The pins are just so small, so delicate. Getting them bent back exactly like they were before, there are hundreds of them there. And getting all of those pins bent back, you're really looking at a very tedious job. I'm not even sure it'd be worth my time to spend all that time if I could do it. You're a lot more skilled than me if you are able to do it. So we're getting that cleaned off right now on the CPU cooler. And that's another thing. These old systems are so well built. They are very well built. The CPU coolers are excellent. Just one more reason why these are a good choice. I'd say, like, I found the same thing with Dell workstations, Lenovo workstations. I'm a bit of a Lenovo fanboy. I really like the Lenovo systems. I've owned them for many years, and I've just had nothing but success with them. So yeah, if I'm a fanboy, that's why, because they have been so good to me. So let's take a look now that we got it cleaned off. And it cleaned off so easy but you'll see the number of copper pipes, 4 copper pipes, that is just excellent. And this massive fins here, that's really good at dissipating heat. It's just well done. So what we want to do now is put the new CPU back in there. And again, we're going to handle it by the sides. We're going to be very, very careful. So let's get a closer look there. Maybe you can see the numbers. And this is a 2697 V3. So it's a Xeon E5 2697 V3. And we're going to handle it, as I said, by the edges, and we're going to line it up right here, nice and neat. I think we got us a problem, Houston. So let's take a look at this closer and see what's going on here, because this is supposed to be B3. Because we didn't get it apart, I had no way to know that. But you get to experience with me one of the problems we might be running into. Now that is a 16 V3. But the socket is different. They're both V3 chips, but they have different sockets, so I'm not sure that's going to work. I'm pretty sure it's not going to work. But I'm pretty sure I was wrong. They look very different. If you see these two CPUs together, you'll see the one is a lot bigger. But it does fit, so we're going to move on. But again, I didn't try to force it down in there. I just set it down in there gently, like so, and it fits perfectly. All right, now we're going to gently put that down, and then this one has to go down first because it holds it there, and it's on the inside, so slide it in inside, and again on the inside, and there you go. Now we got that in there, so that worked out. Next, we need a little thermal paste. Now, the schools of thermal paste application are varied. You hear a lot of stuff. One drop in the middle, spread it out, do a lot of stuff. Me, I like to put most of it in the middle and just do just outside of it little dots. And the thinking for me is getting an even spread. Now the good thing about thermal paste is it's non-conductive. So as long as you don't get insane about it, then it's at most just going to run off a little bit, and it's not going to harm anything. And even if you got it off, it's basically just going to make a little bit of a mess, but it shouldn't hurt anything. What will hurt something is not getting enough thermal paste in there. So don't make that mistake. Make sure you get enough thermal paste in there. Now I would like to connect this back before I put this down, but I'm not going to, because it's very important that you line this up. You don't want to be holding this and trying to do that, which you could, but I don't feel comfortable. So you're going to put this back down really, really careful and line it up perfectly. You do not want to damage your board. Now, as we're screwing this down, we want to make sure that we start each one just a tiny bit, and we do it crossways. So we just want to get them started. Now the reason for that is we want to spread that thermal paste evenly. So we're just going to tighten each one a little bit, and we're going to go crossways like this. Little bit, until we get it down. That'll keep it from like squirting all out on one side, and then you're not getting good coverage. Now, I've done this quite a few times, and I actually tested on a couple of different boards, and what I did was tried putting it in the middle, and then I tried putting it with a 5-die like I just did, and I just wanted to see which way would give you the best spread. And to be honest, for the most part, all of them worked pretty good, but there were a couple of tests where possibly by my own mistake, didn't spread out good. But when I did the 5-die, it got a tiny bit messy sometime, but nothing that was a problem. But I always got good coverage. So it's up to you. You may want to test it. Got an extra board laying around? Give it a try. Doesn't hurt anything. But not having the thermal paste spread out properly, that will hurt. All right, now we're going to carefully put this back on there. And again, with computers, do not force anything. Take your time, get it lined up, and then put it back on. So there we go. Now we've got a excellent new power supply that has 2 6-pins. Excellent. And by the way, these power supplies are very high quality. So that's awesome. So next step, we're going to do the memory. So let's just go ahead and pop out that one memory module, which is an 8 gigabyte module. It's a good Samsung 8 gigabyte. We're going to use it at some point in the future, but not on this build. What you don't want to do, there's 2 things you don't want to do. And that's one, not fill each channel. So you want to make sure that you have at least one memory module in each channel. So 1, 2, 3, 4, the dark channels. Those would be the first 4. So at one in each of those, you get maximum performance. What you don't want to do is mix memory module frequencies or sizes. Both of those are going to hurt performance. And it's a waste. These are 2400. The module that I took out is 2133. If I put both of these in there, we're going to have 2 problems. One, it's going to make this 2400 frequency throttle down to 2133 because they all have to match. The other thing, because the sizes are different, 8 gigabyte and 4 gigabyte, the CPU has to process that to understand what's going on. And that's going to cause a small performance hit. We don't need any performance hits. These are older systems, and we're trying to get maximum performance out of them. And you can't do that by dropping your frequencies down, and you can't get it by causing the modules or the CPU to try to figure out, do all extra calculations because the modules are different sizes. So make sure you line up this slot with this slot there and just put it in there. I can't say it enough. Gently, and then gently pop it down. Not sure if you can hear that, but it just makes a nice pop. And I've commented on that. I've worked on a lot of different systems, and I feel like workstations tend to have such nice motherboards. Some of the systems I've worked on over the years, when you put the memory in, I just feel like, wow, you got to try so hard, and it doesn't just go like that beautiful popping feeling when it pops down in there. That's just feels really nice. So make sure you pull the tabs back before you put it in, and make sure when you're done that you just give it a little push to make sure that they are actually in there and it's secured. Should be when it pops down in there nicely, but don't ever assume anything. You're going to assume that you just wrecked your motherboard, or you're wasting time because you're trying to figure out what in the heck is wrong with this system. It's not posting, can't get it to boot up. What's going on? Well, a loose memory module will cause those kinds of problems, if not worse. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure everything gets double checked. And I try to do that when I'm building these systems. I try to make sure that I check and double check everything as I go, and after I finish. I just go through quick inspection. Did we get everything? All right. Now we have power supply. We replaced the CPU with almost 4 times more powerful CPU. And we've got 32 gigabytes of faster memory. So went from 8 gigabytes of 2133 to 32 gigabytes of 2400. So excellent. We're making really good progress. So next, let's get that GPU in there. So this GPU takes up 2 slots. So we're going to have to open this up and pull out the second and we're going to line it up into the first slot here. So that's going to give us a chance to put something in this slot up here if you ever want to, like an extra Ethernet or whatever. It's a PCI 1. This also has a PCIe 4, but that gets stuck under here, so you're not going to be able to use it. But it does have a PCI X8 here. And you can use this 16 too. So the 16 can be used for any of these types of cards. What you don't want to do is stick this all the way down here just so you can access these extra PCIe lanes, because it's going to restrict airflow. Really don't want to do that. So if you were taking this out, make sure to pull this pin or pull this little tab, So if it doesn't go in there good and you want to pull it out, push this tab back or you're going to break it. That's a problem, and it's a problem you don't want. So we're going to carefully line it up. As you can see here, we're going to line that up very carefully and just let it sit down on there. So it's just sitting right down on there. We didn't force it in. Now we're going to line it up over here. And then once we see we got everything lined up perfectly, we're just going to pop it down in there. And there you go. It popped in there, sweet as can be. And we've got it in. Next, we got to close that up. So both on each side, we have to pop both of those back in. Next, as I said, we're going to hook up the power supply, and then we're going to tie one of these back. So we'll get to that later, but for now, we're going to connect this, and it'll only go in one way. This connects out over the card in most cases, and it just holds it on there. So there you go. We could do some other stuff here to hold that, but I just think it'll look a lot nicer, a lot more professional if we just put a zip on there. So let's find a little zip tie. I'm sure we got one over here. And then we will deal with that straight off. So I keep a lot of different zip ties, and some of them are a little bit too colorful, but sometimes I just like to play with them because some of the older systems that I do, they've got all the multicolored wiring and everything, so it's like, who cares? It's not like this, all black, so nice. It may not be RGB, but it is very coordinated. Looks nice. So let's get that little extra cut off. Be careful. Cut this, don't cut yourself. There you go. Now that's tucked out of the way. It's not going to cause any problems. And we're going to go through again. We got a power supply. We got a awesome new GPU or CPU. We got 32 gigabytes. We have an Asus GTX 1060. We're making good progress, and we're creating an awesome build. This is really going to be an awesome build. So let's get that SSD out, and we're going to need to install that SSD into the adapter that I showed you earlier. So let's take a quick look at that adapter and the tray, just so you get an idea of what we're doing here. So there's the tray. As I said, I had to purchase the tray because this system only had one of the trays, and we want to have trays in both of them. You could just tuck that in, like I'll show you. Sometimes you can just tuck one of those SSDs in here, because it doesn't matter if it's moving around. I mean, if it's tight in there, but it doesn't look as good. It's not as professional. I just prefer to do it the right way. So we're going to take this, we're going to put in this like so, and we're going to mount the drive in like so, and when we put it down in there, well, like so, and when we put it down in there, we can connect everything. So let's just go ahead and do that real quick. So we got lots of little screws here, and I don't like to ever do this over top of the system, because any screws down in there, especially if you don't discharge the system, you could really cause big problems. And we're trying to do a massive upgrade here, not a destruction of a nice system. So we'll start with the first one, get that in there, not too tight, but tight enough to hold it up pretty good. Then we'll go crossways so that it is held up really good. Two more. They give you 8 in case you need to like mount this into a cage, but this one has the little ends in the tray, so don't need the extra screws. Put them in your toolbox so you got lots of extras for your next build. Now this is going to go down in like so, so we want to put it in like so, so that it all lines up nicely. And all you got to do is just put it in there so that it meets in there nicely like so. And once you got them all in there, you can just pop them in a tiny bit. It'll hold in there nicely. Now let's see if that'll go down in there. I'm not loving it. I feel like it's not going in good. It usually does, but these don't seem to be going in very good. Seems like this tray is not allowing it to pop all the way in. We're going to swap these trays out real quick and see if the other one is any better. Probably not, but let's give it a try. Some of them are going in. Maybe this isn't working. I mean, maybe those holes didn't get machined out properly. Well, sorry to have to bother you with that, but let's pull it out of there and see if we can replace it with another one that maybe is machined out, and I can machine that one out before the next build. Before we do that, let's do a quick test here. Will it fit properly in this one? I've used these a lot, and I just never had any problems with them. But this is a problem. As you can see, this is bowing out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and continue with the build, and at a later I will machine these out a little bit so that this will go up in there. So just bear with me as I complete the build, and I'm going to show you the hacky way of doing it. And that is, I'm just going to put it down in there loosely until after this video I can take a little drill bit and just drill those holes out slightly bigger until it fits. But don't worry, if you want to buy this system, I will fix that. This will be properly mounted. But for now, we're going to move on. So back to the system here, and we're going to drop the hard drive down in there. It's a nice Western Digital blue drive, and we're going to pop it in there, just line the holes up, and as you can see, it's going to fit in there perfectly as it should. And then we're going to drop it down in there. So just line those holes up. Make sure this is at the top. And then we're going to drop it down in there. Yeah, so. And then we're going to just hook this up. And as I said, don't worry, I'm not going to leave it like this. But for the sake of finishing this build and you not waiting on me to drill those out, we're just going to set it down in here like so, and you can use your imagination and say, oh, it's in a tray. And then we're going to hook these up. Now we've got the power supplies hooked up, so that's nice. Now this one is running to the back drive, and this one you see is a straight pin, because when we hook this up in the tray, it's going to be down in there, and instead of bending it, we're just going to use this straight tray so it's not bent. Now it's important because this is on 0, so it's on 0 on the board. So first drive is not number 1, it's 0. So there we go. And as I said, later we're going to have that down in there nicely, but I can assure you that would not go anywhere, and you could just do it like this and you would never have any problems. But I'm a stickler. I like to do it the right way, quote fingers, and so we're going to deal with that later. So now we have a completed build. We have a new power supply. We have an updated, almost 4 times powerful CPU. We've gone from 4 cores to 14 cores, and we have 28 threads. So vast improvement. We put in from 8, now we have 32 gigabytes of memory and quad channel, and also 2400. So we added our GTX 1060 graphics card. This system is going to be able to play a lot of games. There are going to be very few games that this system won't play well. Now some of the newest and some of the newest AAA titles, you will probably still be able to play them, but you're probably going to have to dial it down a notch. But I would, if I had to guess, compared to other systems that I built, you can probably play about 95 maybe even higher, of the games out there on this system. And as far as productivity, Microsoft Office, graphics editing, even video rendering, this system is going to be excellent. Is it going to be the fastest in the world at those jobs? Absolutely not. But we're building on a budget. And so we want a budget system that is powerful, a good value, and very well built, reliable, dependable system. That's what we have here. We are going to have a really dependable, powerful system that can do anything that you need to do. So the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to put the memory cooler back on there. And as I stated earlier, very important, if you're buying this system, make sure you get the 700 watt power supply and the memory cooler. Very important. And remember, this 6-pin goes over here. So it might look like it's going to go like this, but it won't. HP logo the right way, and then we're just going to line up the tabs here on each side. Super careful. And once we get that lined up perfectly, that's when we can push that down in there. And there you go. We can tell we got it down in there good because it clipped in, and it wouldn't clip in over here very easily unless you got it lined up, because it would hold it up a little bit. So there's that. And as I said, the last thing on the list is drilling those holes out a little bit. I don't know if all of these are like that. Let me try one more before I let you guys go. We're going to see if they're all that way, because I just used one of these the other day and it went off without a hitch. So I feel kind of strange that it didn't work. I have another solution for you. So here's my other solution. I'm going to go ahead and pull this back out. Get that back out of there. And I have one of these. So this will take care of the problem. We're going to put this in here, and it should go in there without a hitch. Get all that lined up. We got it in there. Well, I got it in there backwards, what I did. So let's do that again. All right. Now, because it's a little deeper on that back side, and it has this in the way. Excuse me. Some of the adapters matter, some of them don't. But this one, it won't work that way. Now we got that fixed. And I don't have to promise you that I'll fix it later. All right. Still got it wrong. It's got to be mounted the hard drive upside down, or upside down, I guess. Those are the way it's going to slot in there. We're going to get it sooner or later. I believe That will do it. So now we can hook the power back up. Need to get a little bit more. There. Then this one and this one. And there you go, folks. We got it all in there. The only thing I don't like is we could use a little more slack here. So let me do that real quick. Make sure it's not got a lot of tension there. Don't want that. I think that's probably perfect. You may rest assured whenever I'm doing these builds that I always take the time to do it right. I don't like doing things halfway or janky, however you want to say that. So I like to make sure that I get everything in correct. I will admit sometimes on my own systems, especially the ones that I don't use much, I might sometimes do that. But on a system like this that I'm putting so much effort and expense into and putting online to sell to good folks like you, I would never do that. So that's about it. All we're going to do now is close it back up, and I'll just run through all of this real quick for you. There is something that I do that's not on the list of what I'm doing, and that is I don't show when I clean this out. I don't show you. You don't see me cleaning it out. Okay, but I take X Power. I take an X Power blower, and I'll show you what that looks like. You can get these for about 40 bucks on Amazon. And the air coming out of this thing is like amazing. You can blow out your computers really good. But the only problem with it is so powerful that you can totally destroy your fans. So what you want to do is take a brush like this. Let me switch here. You want to take a brush like this and put it in the CPU fan, put it in the memory fans, depending on what you're blowing out, or the back case fan, front case fan, the fan for the video card. Do not let them spin. If they spin super fast, you're going to destroy them. So again, get a nice little brush like this. Plastic handle's great, and use that to insert into the fans. And then, as I said, you don't see it, and possibly I'll show a cleaning video at some point, but you can use canned air, but canned air has a problem. One, it's expensive and you got to keep buying cans of air. And two, you have to use short bursts, and you can never tilt the cans because it'll shoot liquid out, possibly destroy your computer. So you have to be really careful about that. This is not a compressor, so no water in the tank. This is not canned air, so it's never going to shoot out any liquids. And you'll never have to replace it, or at least not for a very long time. I've had this one for probably about 8 years. Something like that, 6 or 8 years. Had it for a while. Works really good. Very powerful. No more canned air for me. Thank you. All right, that's it. I really appreciate you watching, and I really look forward to the next build. So help me out. Subscribe to my channel. Like the video, and look in the description down below and buy this system so I can buy the next system and make another build for someone just like you. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.